Hey guys, I'm Calluna, and yay! We're finally starting to get some new footage for Season 7 of Game of Thrones! The newest promo, called The Long Walk, doesn't show any new scenes from the upcoming episodes themselves, but it does give us some insight on what we can expect in the upcoming season. It shows Cersei, Jon, and Daenerys representing the three factions vying for power in Westeros, as each walks towards their respective thrones. Ultimately, though, we see that winter has come. Now, although this is short, there is still a lot to glean for the upcoming season. Since this is Season 7, I've compiled a list of 7 insights I found while watching the teaser. Let's break them down. Number 1. Sporting new threads. All 3 leaders are now sporting outfits that represent not only their roles as figureheads, but also give insight into their family ties. Jon's is probably the least different in comparison to the end of Season 6, but he really does seem to be dressing the part of Ned Stark. The furs that Sansa sewed for him make him truly feel like a Stark. Although it's a bit hard to see due to the lighting, Jon is also wearing armor, which makes sense considering his prowess as a warrior. It calls to mind not just Ned, but also Robb. And in some ways you could say that Jon is finally starting to accept the fact that he is taking over where Robb left off. He had been proclaimed the new king in the north, and Jon felt incredibly guilty over his jealousy of Robb when he hears about Robb's death, so the expression on Jon's face reflects those conflicting emotions. Cersei's dress looks very similar to her outfit from the coronation, though we see that there is more detailing at the top. If it looks familiar, it's probably because it is sporting a similar Lannister theme that we saw on Sansa's wedding dress to Tyrion, which made sure to heavily feature the sigil of House Lannister. Cersei's armor shoulder pads are also noticeably absent, so between that and the sheer amount of detail here, it would appear that Cersei is trying to put on an air of confidence, like, what are you gonna do? I'm queen, bitch! Dany's is probably the most striking of the bunch, and you'll probably hear me say that a lot since the majority of the new stuff focuses on her. We saw at the end of Season 6 that she was starting to wear darker colors, sporting a new black dress. Now, though, she's more covered up to fit the colder environment, and she's sporting a red sash to fully embrace her Targaryen colors of red and black. Of course, we see some dragon memorabilia, and it looks very similar to Viserys' dragon pin from Season 1. Daenerys has fully embraced her heritage and has come to claim her birthright. Number 2. State of King's Landing. A lot of the imagery in this teaser is supposed to be more symbolic than literal, but knowing Cersei, it seems perfectly reasonable for her to commission some gaudy stained glass windows featuring the Lannister house sigil. Not only does this show that Cersei truly has taken control of the Iron Throne, well, for now, but she isn't hiding behind the title of the Baratheons to assume power. She was crowned as a Lannister, not a Baratheon if you remember. So this is mostly just to emphasize that Cersei doesn't care anymore about what the people think of her. She doesn't need to pretend to care about Robert anymore to assume power. Number 3. One seat of power. It is interesting to see that unlike the end of Season 6, there's only one chair at the table to represent the leader of Winterfell. Unlike before when we saw Sansa sitting with Jon, and overall they seem to be treating each other as equals. Littlefinger does seem to be scheming to have Sansa take power instead of Jon, so perhaps the lack of a second chair foreshadows that fight for power? We have yet to see what Sansa's reaction is to the declaration of King in the North for Jon. Jon was perfectly willing to hand the power over to Sansa, and it was the other lords who had vied for Jon instead. Hopefully this season won't focus on that too much considering the shorter number of episodes. Number 4. Winter is here. We get this really cool shot of Cersei's breath being shown, indicating that the temperature is cold enough to allow us to see it. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to just be symbolic in nature. Winter will be starting to make its way southward. I don't expect the throne room to look like it did in Dany's vision from the House of the Undying just yet. But I think it's supposed to be some visual shorthand that, at the end of the day, whoever does manage to take the Iron Throne, whether it's Cersei, Jon, or Dany, the victor will have to face an even more dangerous foe, the Night's King and his army of the dead. I personally don't expect Cersei to live to see that fight, if only because it makes more sense for Jon and Dany's forces to align to crush her. The show does tend to speed events up, so it's possible it could start snowing at King's Landing, but I doubt that's actually going to happen until the last episode of the season. Number 5. I See You. So we saw a blue eye at the end of the first season trailer, and we seem to have it once again, only we get to see it panned out a bit more before cutting to black. Since the eye clearly belongs to a humanoid face, it deflates the ice dragon theory a bit, though of course that still could happen. Now, the new debate seems to be on whether or not this is a giant other. Due to the size of the nose and the shape of the brow, A lot of fans seem to be thinking this is a giant, but personally, I think it's just an up-close shot of the Night's King. When you zoom in real close like that, it distorts the perception of the image, and yeah, those bumpy ridges could mean this is a giant, but it's just as likely, if not more so, to be the Night's King. The only reason I'm not 100% sure on this is the fact that they aren't showing his face entirely. Maybe they're just trying to trick us, or hey, maybe they're going to have other giants, but probably not. Number 6. Dany's home base. So we know Cersei is in King's Landing, and Jon is at Winterfell, so where the heck is Daenerys in this teaser? She is at Dragonstone, which we can tell based on the architecture of the halls and the throne room. Dragonstone used to be Stannis' castle, gifted to him by Robert after the end of the rebellion, but Dragonstone is very important to Dany for a number of reasons. For one, she wants to take back what the usurper stole from her. Dragonstone belonged to her family originally. When her ancestor, Aegon the Conqueror, first arrived in Westeros, his family built Dragonstone as its keep, and it was where he began his quest to unify the Seven Kingdoms. Naturally, then, it seems a good story for Dany to follow in her ancestor's footsteps, since she also wants to conquer Westeros. Dragonstone is the place where she was born, so that's also an important part of her history. It's a good place for her to set up a home base, and since she has a huge fleet coming with her, it's incredibly important that she lands in a location that will be good for the taking. With Stannis and the rest of the Baratheons gone, the castle has no leader, so it shouldn't be too difficult for her to take control. Finally, we know that the castle has a large hoard of dragonglass, which will be necessary for fighting against the White Walkers. So if Dany wants to form an alliance with Jon, offering a large hoard of the material needed to kill the White Walkers would make an excellent bargaining chip. Number 7. Sympathy for all. The lyrics for the song Sit Down repeat multiple times as the trailer cuts back and forth between these three, and this is less of an observation from the trailer itself and more of just something that made me think of it. All three of these figures, while we as the readers know they're going to be important to the overall story, all started off in positions of either servitude or in general had a lack of agency. Cersei had to bow to Robert's will since he was the king. Daenerys submitted to her brother's cruelty and wouldn't gain her confidence until her marriage to Drogo. And Jon, as a bastard, was always in the shadow of his true-born siblings. We've seen these three grow as they've been given more power and gained more confidence, though admittedly Jon's still kind of a work in progress. Each seeks the throne for a different reason, though, and it makes me think of the quote from William Shakespeare. Some are born great, Daenerys seeks the throne as her birthright. Some achieve greatness, Cersei has come into power through her tenacity and madness. And some have greatness thrust upon them, Jon being declared king in the north despite his reluctance. It'll be interesting to see just who comes out on top in the end. So yeah, those are my thoughts regarding this newest teaser. Hopefully we'll be getting a proper trailer soon. I'll definitely be doing a proper trailer breakdown when that comes out. So what did you guys think of my observations? Was there anything I missed that you think I should have mentioned? Which of these three do you think will make it to the final showdown with the Night's King? Post your thoughts and comments below. Alright, I'm Calluna, and thanks for tuning into another Game of Thrones video. See you in the next one!
Geek Vision.